Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, I'm here with my good friend Dustin. D2 Sylv was so popular on some of those Springbank Distillery reviews that I decided to bring back for a few more. So we're going to do a couple of his whiskeys and a couple of mine, see what you guys think. But on this particular review, we're going to be doing the Glenlivet Nàdurra 16-year-old 2014 bottling, cask strength.
Yes, sir.
Let me show the folks the bottle here, Dustin.
Yep.
And tell me a little bit about what we got here, my friend.
Yeah, so Glenlivet has a line of whiskeys they call the Nadurra series. They used to be 16 years old, and around 2014 they stopped doing an age statement and they started doing NASs. They today have a first fill sherry, they have a version finished in peated casks, and they have this, which is finished in bourbon casks. We are, however, doing the 16-year, which is considerably better than the NAS.
Yeah, then that's all I can find these days is the NAS version. But this one here is bottled at 55.7%. Again, bottled on 8/14, so August of 2014. I believe that's how I should read that. And for any of you at home, this is batch number 0814D, as in David.
Yeah, now I can tell you these are still floating out there. Not only have I found some recently, but I've talked to people out all over the country. For some reason, it feels like a batch of these just started showing up recently because I keep hearing people saying they're finding these now. So, I don't know.
And you're going to grab me one, right?
Yeah, you got one coming.
Yes, nice.
Just one?
Might as well make it two. Might as well make it two. So Nadurra, what does that mean?
You know, I believe it has something to do with being natural, but I'm not confident. I will tell you this is non-chill filtered. I'm almost positive this is natural color, which is not the case with all of Glenlivet's.
No.
They go out of their way to tell you that, hey, the natural haze is going to form if you put water in here. This is
Scottish mist.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, this is actually the first, like, going out of my, like, comfort zone of whiskeys I actually ever bought. It was back when I lived in Kentucky. They decided that they were going to start putting sales tax on whiskey because before they didn't have sales tax on alcohol.
Nice.
And so me and my friends went out and we were like, all right, let's just stock up. This was one of the bottles of Scotch I picked up, and it has been one of like those, it brings me back to those like end of college days. You know, my first kind of like non-Johnny Walker Scotch I'd really stepped out to that wasn't like maybe a 12-year, like $50 or whatever, $30 back then.
Glenlivet was one of my first Scotches that I went through multiple versions of the core range too, so I know exactly what you mean.
The 12 was my first, but this was like me stepping up. I think I did this before I did the 15 or the 18.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that 15 Solera. But anyway, we got the 16 Nadurra. I'll try to look up and see exactly what Nadurra means, and if I can find any information on it, I will put it right here. If it's blank, I didn't. Anyway, I've got a cask strength whiskey. I haven't brought you a Glenlivet in quite some time. I did do the 12, the 15, the 18, and the 21, and then a Give and Tell 25-year-old, which was cask strength. But I pretty much tapped out most of my Glenlivets. I haven't bit the bullet and bought the 25-year because of the price.
Yeah.
And 43% Abv and Chill Filtered. But when you brought a Glenlivet today, I was like, oh, Glenlivet, great. But I tell you what, we had a few drinks of it, and I was impressed enough with it that I thought, hey, maybe you folks there at home would want to get our opinions on this one to see if you thought it was worth the money if you happen to come across it. So, I believe it is natural color, so we're going to give you the color, which I believe is a light gold. Gold -1 maybe?
Yeah, I'll buy that.
I'm kind of giving it a swirl around the glass. Like with any cask strength whiskey, it beads up and it takes a second, so you can see some good viscosity.
Oh yeah, I mean you can definitely pick it up there. Look at that.
Oh yeah.
I mean it's beautiful.
It's a good one. And again, you said this is basically bourbon cask maturation, right?
I'm pretty sure this is exclusive bourbon cask. I don't believe it's first fill, although they may use some first fill in there. But I don't think they claim that. And based on the taste, I'm thinking there's definitely some older oak being used in this.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into that. We'll tell you guys what we think of that. So Glenlivet, Speyside Distillery, one of the most popular names in Scotch. I'm sure if you know anything about whiskey reviews or whiskey itself, you've heard of Glenlivet. So let's get into it, Dustin.
Yep.
Now, instantly on this nose, even though it's cask strength, like you don't get an overpowering alcohol smell whatsoever, in my opinion. And it reminds me a lot of that 25-year-old Give and Tell, which is an independent bottle in Glenlivet I had. I'm getting those nice light apples, pears, light fruits notes. What do you get?
Yeah. So when I first was smelling this a little earlier, I was getting more of the citrus notes. What I'm picking up now though is actually honey. This is reminding me more and more of a Balvenie, like the Balvenie 15-year single cask. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I actually brought this over was because we've been talking about that bottle. And to me, this has a lot of that same honey note. It's got a lot of that same, bourbon barrel, light oak kind of going in there.
Now, Dustin, I'm a big fan of the Balvenie 15-year-old single barrel, both of them, but I was always a person who loved that old bourbon cask Balvenie. Dustin happened to find 7 in Kentucky for $87, still amazing. They were the 2012 bottlings that were like 16 years old, and he gave me a quick text like, "Hey man, look what I found here. I'm going to grab a couple for myself." And I said, "I want every one you're not going to buy, every single one. Just tell me what to write the check for. Here's where we go."
Well, and the funny thing, so I literally poured that night, and then somebody knew I had this bottle, and said, and I was talking to somebody on like one of the Discord chats, and he goes, "Hey, how do they compare?" And I went, "That's a good question." So I went and popped this thing open, broke the cork, had to go spend like 20 minutes fixing that issue.
Happens so often these days for me, breaking corks.
This is a 2014, guys. That is something to be concerned about when you buy these older bottles.
Who knows what kind of condition the cork's in?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
gonna be
honestly,
dry.
honestly, if you've got new bottles you've just killed in the last few months, just go ahead and replace the corks right away is probably good advice as soon as you get it open on these old bottles.
Dustin, that's why I have a whiskey graveyard.
Yes.
I have an area in my basement, which I've showed a few of my friends, Dustin being one of them, of what happens when I extinguish the spirit inside that bottle. And I just put them in my basement, in a little crawl space. I put a little cork board down or plywood down. I just stack them up there. I need corks. Heaven forbid I chip a bottle or something like that won't sit straight. Yep. That's what I have it for. Because you have a few drinks, you get a little handsy.
Yeah.
You know, a little hard as far as the put down, things of that nature. Smack bottles around.
It happens.
It happens. It happens. Or you just get a bad cork. I've had a lot of bad corks lately.
My first cork failure was a Glenlivet 21 year, which was disappointing because that was expensive at the time.
221, one of my biggest whiskey disappointments.
Yeah, that was my first bottle over $100 I bought.
That was over 200.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so back to the 60 Nadurra. I'm trying to give it a few minutes, kind of open up in the glass here.
I'm just getting vanilla, honey, a little bit of oak. Very nice little bit of oak too. It almost adds a slight nutty note. Like Honey Nut Cheerios almost.
Yes, light honey. I wouldn't say the same level as Balvenie, but it definitely is there. Kind of a light note.
Balvenie's darker honey.
Yes, more aged, more richer honey.
Heather.
Yes, more of a unpeated Highland Park honey, if you will.
Yeah. This is lighter.
Yeah, but this is very, very, very light fruits.
And yeah, you're right. There's citrus for sure. Yeah. I
What
was
is
saying
citrus?
earlier apple, pear, and I'm getting more on the light apple.
Light apple, maybe just a twinge of lemon, like a lemon that doesn't sting, if that makes any sense. Like lemon's there, but like you normally think lemon, I have to get in my eye, it's gonna hurt. Like it's just a very watered down lemon.
Yeah.
I'll say a little bit of an oaky note, probably since it's a cask strength version, but the Glenlivet Spirit, this is the second cask strength Glenlivet I've had, the other one being the Give and Tell 25. It is, even at cask strength, and even with some years on it being 25 or 16, it is such an easy, very approachable smell and drink on a whiskey.
Yeah.
For being cask strength, 55.7. I'm not gonna say it doesn't drink like it from a viscosity standpoint, but you don't get a lot of that pungency from the alcohol jumping out the nose or even on the palate.
I would agree. And so I just had my first taste of this
Yeah,
one.
we
And
did.
the alcohol is very, very apparent when you drink this one. It hits you with a little bit of alcohol bite for sure. It hits you with a lot of, it's got a little bit of astringency. Now, you're also getting a lot more citrus here. It's beautiful. It's citrus. The vanilla kind of is more on the finish, same with the oak.
A little bit of caramel.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of honey at first, but I'm betting it's there. I just got to go look for it.
To me, the sweetness isn't honey, it's caramel. And it's a light caramel. It's almost like recently it's Christmas time here in the States, at least 2019 when we're recording this video. And one of our vendors recently came in and gave us Fiji apples with the caramel that you have to warm up and you can put it on there. And it's not like a caramel dip like you would get at the fair.
Yeah.
So you're trying to put it on with a knife and kind of warm it up, and you're trying to save some for everybody else.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's more apples than the caramel that they gave you. So you just put like a light bit of caramel like around it, so you can just get a little bit of that caramel bite in the apple. It's that light caramel. It's like a Fiji apple that had caramel just kind of just skips along on it, not a fully carameled apple.
You know, I'm getting almost like a salted caramel. Now, there's no salt in this. I do not pick up any salt, but I get sort of, maybe it's the oak that's doing it, but it's like there's something else there with that caramel that's kind of, it's keeping it from being overly sweet. This is not overpowering, dessert. Scotch. There's a lot of
Very nice.
there's citrus, there's oak, and there's just something else there that's keeping this from being a dessert whiskey. This is very light. It's got, when I say light, I mean like light flavors.
Very light
Because
flavors.
it's definitely not light. This is definitely punching with that alcohol.
But yeah, I agree with you. This isn't something that, from a flavor profile, is going to turn anybody off. This is still kind of what I've always thought about Glenfiddich and Glenlivets in general. Very approachable.
Yes.
Very approachable. Very medium palate as far as flavors for anybody to really enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would tell you is if, you're bringing somebody in who's new, you're probably going to want to bring the ABV down because this is... This drink's hotter than 55 usually does for me. And 16 years, I usually don't get this much heat.
I think a lot of it has to do with the bourbon wood.
Could be.
Well, because to me, sherry cask covers up some of the harshness, like peat wood. I know peat is something you do in the distillation process as opposed, or drying of the barley, as opposed to sherry cask, which you do after it's distilled and you put it into a barrel.
Yeah.
But both of them cover up some unpleasantness sometimes of the whiskey. Now, where this one, I appreciate it being cask strength, but I think Glenlivet's one of those distilleries based on kind of what the distillate normally is and the cask that they use. When you go cask strength and you go a while in a cask, 16, 18, 20 years, it can get a little choppy, dicey as far as
it brings
as
a little
far
that
as the taste.
citrus. It brings a little bitterness.
Yeah, bitter is probably a better way of putting
it. And that can be a really good thing on a whiskey. I don't necessarily want to say it's a bad thing because it's something I actually find is part of what makes a good bourbon cask complex. Is a little bit of sour, a little bitter. You don't want it getting too bitter. You don't want it getting too sour. That's when you start saying it's over oak. And this is nowhere close to that.
But see, I think, again, in our minds, since we've been talking so much about the Balvenie 15-year-old single barrel, in some ways we're kind of, for me, in my mind, I'm kind of comparing a little bit to that, where you get a lot of the light tropical fruits of that Balvenie 15-year-old single barrel. Well, this one you're not really getting those. You are getting a little bit of bitterness. And you are getting still vanilla and apples and pears, like the peel of them, but it's not as complex. I think
there's more vanilla here. This is not as complex as the Balvenie, but let's not go into that one. It's whiskey. But this is, I would say this is, for a 16-year, it's on the low side of medium complexity.
I agree. It's pretty straightforward.
But it's intense. It's rich. This is a good whiskey to bring somebody over who likes cask strength bourbons and wants something not sherry. Like they've had finished whiskey and they don't like it. This is a good kind of a transition there.
Yeah, I've always said that bourbon maturations, especially when they're refilled bourbon casks, really bring out the distillery characteristic regardless of which whiskey it is. And I think it's doing that for the Glenlivet.
Yeah.
It very much reminds me again of that Give and Tell 25. It just feels like it's a little 2 or 3 dimensional.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's put it this way. If you're thinking of the big distilleries, the Macallan, Balvenie, the ones that everybody talks about. So you can go into like the Springbanks, which at least of Whiskey Geeks is a super popular brand.
Sure. Oh yeah.
If you're talking about it, like whose new make is the best, Glenlivet's not on the list.
No, it's way down the list.
It's bottom quarter.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's not that they're bad, because again, we're talking the big guys. We're not talking about the smaller distilleries that are only used for blend because they're not that good to start with. We're talking the guys who make good stuff.
Yeah.
And I think they're in the bottom quarter, which is not necessarily a bad thing when you...
Well, it goes back to it's palatable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And like none of the flavors are going hard left, hard right, hard up, down. It still kind of stays core to what they really are.
Yeah.
Now, we did add a few drops of water into this. Now, I will say this. With a few drops of water, I am getting more vanilla on the nose.
Completely. More vanilla. But with the vanilla, it brings oak.
Yes.
And that
bitter oak on it.
It brings out, and you get that on any bourbon cask that's over 12 years. You get that oak bitterness on those, especially ex-bourbon. First fill bourbon, maybe not, but ex-bourbon always.
See, we were talking earlier how Glenlivet needs to do more cask strength bottlings, and I agree.
They do.
But I think going back to the theme of like a Balvenie, they need to start doing some sherry finishing to kind of round it out.
Yeah. So like I said, there is a Nadurra that is first fill sherry. The problem is it's not age stated. And a little hack for everybody out there: if you can find one of the 16s, buy that. Buy the first fill Oloroso. Blend them 50-50.
Bang.
It gets rid of the youthfulness of that Oloroso, and because it's first fill sherry, there's still enough sherry where it's beautiful, and it brings a little of that vanilla in, but it doesn't bring the oak. You're gonna get rid of that bitterness a little bit.
Yeah, with water, like the caramel took a big step back. and like even the apples and the pears, they're still there, but they're much more subdued. Like really at this point with water, it's oak and it's vanilla. Maybe a little bit of apple.
I'm getting a little of that citrus still.
Yeah, a little. It's still a
Oh,
little.
I'm getting a little spiciness on the finish. That's not just oak spice.
With water?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't want to call it pepper. It's not that. But it's like just a nice, it's almost like it's almost baking spice, but not quite.
Like a white cinnamon, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like cinnamon, but like half the edge taken off.
It's like a pie crust, but like not a sweet pie. It's like kind of just a little bit of that crust, maybe the finish, like where you're tasting the crust after you've already had it a little bit.
Bland crust, if you will.
Oh yeah, very bland. Yeah.
A little bland.
Yeah.
All right, so brother, what do you think as far as whiskey score on this one?
So I grade fairly hard. I'm thinking
I'm an 86 out of 100.
I'm doing 84.
Yeah, I mean it's a good whiskey.
I almost get 85, and I'll tell you the reason. It doesn't have any transitions. It doesn't alternate. But yeah, it's not, at the same time though, price point. These are $90 or less.
For a cask strength,
And it's
16 year old
cast
whiskey.
strength. It's one of those you can go to anytime. You can share it. I would have no problem buying more of these.
It's a good drinker.
Yeah, 84 is something. As long as it's under $100, I'm okay buying more.
Right. I mean, this isn't a blow you away whiskey. This is a good whiskey under $100. If you it's around Christmas time. Well, probably when I post this will be January, but being that it's around kind of the gift giving season, let's say. I mean, this is a nice bottle. I think a lot of people like if they're Scotch enthusiasts.
Yeah, and like I was mentioning
don't throw it away.
if you like to blend your own whiskeys, this is a great base for blending.
Yeah.
It's an incredible base for blending, and I've used it for a couple. What else? I've done some other stuff with this. You just put anything that's got like different flavors that you want to add complexity, and using this like thick, creamy, viscous base, beautiful.
I am going to start an infinity bottle because I'm pretty sure one of my nephews is buying me a decanter.
Nice.
Glass. I told him, like, look, man.
No crystal.
No crystal. That guy's letting it. I'll eventually kill myself. But kind of, he was showing me like, hey, what do you think about whiskey decanters? And I know you like whiskey. I'm like, oh, you're buying this for me. But hey, I appreciate his effort to at least go through those steps for me. So I'm pretty sure I'm getting a glass whiskey decanter. And when I do, this would be a good one. I want to do an infinity bottle.
Yeah.
And I got to be careful with what I pour in there. This would be a great one. At the end of the bottle of this, throw a little bit in a decanter, infinity bottle.
Ups that proof, adds vanilla, adds sweetness.
Yes. And it has nothing off-putting.
No, it is just, it's a beautiful whiskey for what it is. And I'm going to replace this. You're asking for a bottle?
I asked for a bottle. We had this off camera a little bit, and I said, hey, you know what? This is good enough. Let's throw it on camera. Let's see what people think.
Yeah.
And if you can find me another one for $87, I feel bad. You just brought me $700 worth of whiskey today. But I need more.
Hey, that's the addiction, right?
My whiskey collection just broke 100, so I thank you for that, my friend. To get
Cheers.
me over that 100 mark from single malt Scotch whiskeys. But we're going to continue to buy and continue to bring great whiskeys to you. For Dustin, who's an 84, I'm an 86. We want to again thank you for joining for another whiskey review. And Dustin, I know you're new to this channel, but we always wish the people happy drinking.
Happy drinking.
See you next time.
All right, guys.
Bye.